when you're training agents and really plugging them in and trying to develop them, what's some of the key things that you guys have noticed and learned that agents struggle with or that you're able to help with that could really help our audience today?
I think one of the biggest ones, there's a couple, and I'll mention two of the biggest ones. One of them is call reluctance.
True.
And if that telephone, if you want to get a fast start, it doesn't matter if you're new. It doesn't matter if you're a veteran. It doesn't matter if you're a sales manager. What you want to do is you want to pick this thing up and you want to start making calls. And you
That's
say,
right.
yes, but that's my friends and my family. Well, who better to start with?
Correct.
So at least get some practice.
Exactly. Hey, welcome back to CA Power Player Podcast. I'm your host, Cody Askins. Today I got a special guest from RL Virtual Marketing, Ron Jones, to talk about recruiting, training, and retaining. Ron, welcome to today's podcast.
Hey, thank you, Cody, for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to being a part of today's show.
Absolutely, man. I mean, when you talk about like we were talking earlier, for those that haven't had a chance to get to know Ron, we were talking before this. He said, man, what I'm really excited about is a lot of people get in the insurance space, man, but a lot of people leave and I want to help them stay. And I'm like, dude, this is my guy, man. Like, I love that. Where's that come from for you?
Yeah. So, back in the 80s, I was in the real estate business, and I made my first million by the age of 27 years old.
Let's go.
Well, by the age of 30, I had lost everything. And so, I kind of had a little bit of a pity party. And
yeah, well, I will add this real quick. I would much rather have it and lose it than never have it.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Because there were very valuable lessons that I learned from that, and I got to see your wife. I haven't got to meet her yet, but I did get to see your wife. And so your wife sounds a lot like my wife in that she handed me, I was having kind of a pity party after losing everything. And she handed me a newspaper and said, hey, I've circled some opportunities for you to go look at. And so one of them happened to be an insurance, circled an insurance ad. And so like your dad, was doing it door to door and collecting on a monthly basis. Yeah. I wasn't doing exactly that, but what I was doing was I would go in on Mondays. We'd have a Monday morning meeting, and they would hand us leads that they had accumulated from the week before. I would go home. We didn't have cell phones at the time, so I would go and I would knock appointments out, getting on the phone from those leads, and most of the time they were 100 or 200 miles away from home. They did that on purpose. I didn't realize it at the time. But I would spend Monday evening through Friday running those leads. Wow. And I did that week after week after week. I did get out of the insurance industry for a little bit of time until I, thought, Ron, why not do what you do best and get back in? And I did. And I got into recruiting, and through first, of course, when I got back in, I was an agent. I was a top agent. First year, I wasn't rookie of the year with the company I was with, but I was runner up. But
that's big though. That's awesome.
Yeah, but of course, I always look at that as being first loser, but still, that's okay. But so. I then started training, and then I went into recruiting. I did that for about 11 years with them. And in 2016, I made the decision to go ahead and continue to collect my renewals. So I'm 100% vested. So I still have the renewals. And I mean, this is a great business, isn't it, Cody? I mean,
it is,
where else can you go and get into something that you still get paid for something that you did years and years and years ago?
True.
And so I'm still reaping those rewards. However, I don't believe in retirement. And so I decided to start this company. And it was really out of frustration. And it was, and I know we were talking before this, and what caught my attention with you is 8% Nation.
Mm.
And I immediately knew what that was. I mean, there was no doubt in my mind because I know that, the Bureau of Statistics says that 98 out of 100 agents will never renew their license. And so I wanted to do something about that. I wanted to make that my mission.
Yeah.
And so when we started RL Virtual, it was actually RL really does stand for recruiting and leads. And so, and it was kind of a double. It was RL Virtual Recruiting and Leads. And it started out with our RL Virtual Recruiting, and then we added leads to it. But, and we did that because, we saw a need. But
Yes.
in the development of all of this, we partnered up with Grant Cardone and became licensees. And because I saw where we have such a need for not just recruiting people into the industry, but actually developing. And when I say that, even though our mantra is recruit, train, and retain, it really does go beyond that. And it is a matter of semantics, and I'm going to pick my battles. And it sounds better recruit, train, and retain than it does to say recruit, develop, and retain. So,
yeah,
but it really is more about development. And I've heard sales managers and agency owners and vice presidents talk about training their people. And they think that you can send them out for, send them to 2 or 3 weeks of training and then send them out in the field and meet with them once a week. And they're going to get what they need. And what the thing that I like about having the licensee program and incorporating that with not only just recruiting those agents, but giving them a place to go to for development on a daily basis. We work with agency owners, and we work with them at different levels. We have some of them that we just coach, and then they work with their team directly. We have some of them that we do a combination of the two. And then we have some of them that we meet with their teams on a daily basis. And we do practice, drill, and rehearse with them. We do actually talk to them about going through the sales cycle. What do you do when you get, if you're doing it in person, or if you're doing it via Zoom, or if you're doing it on the telephone? There is a sales cycle that you go through. And, and we actually put the focus on what is most important in the sales cycle. So it's actually starting to and it makes us feel good about what it is that we do, because that was the reason why I left in 2016.
Yeah.
I was recruiting hundreds of people a year. I've recruited, I have literally recruited probably over 10,000 people in my career.
Wow. Yeah.
And,
well, what do you think some of the biggest things you've learned doing that? That's a lot.
Yeah. So, well, and it's changed over the years, right? And so one of the biggest things I think, it's like the thing that I've learned is we haven't changed with the times. So, like I told you, the way that I first came into the business was through the newspaper. You probably came in because your dad was doing it, probably.
That's right.
And so, which was a nomination or a referral, somebody, you knew somebody. And so and that's why there's such a big gap and that's what I'm seeing. is, and I kept seeing that gap getting bigger and bigger and bigger and wider,
Mm,
wider and wider, instead of coming in like this, the way it used to be. It used to be when somebody got into the business, they stayed in the business. The reason why they stayed in the business is because they had somebody that cared about them, that was there and helped them. I heard you say the other day, on the monthly, the bi-monthly thing that you do. Yeah,
yeah,
the
yeah,
virtual deal. You
yes,
know, I heard you say, you went out with a new agent on a Saturday morning that you really didn't want to do, and then you got there and you thought it was going to be a no-show, and then it ended up being a good deal.
that's right.
But see, the thing about it is today we're I hate saying this, but it is a reality. The majority of the time, most people that get people into the business aren't willing to do what you were willing to do,
Mm,
and that's a big problem. And so, because of the internet, and I have a client that was with us for quite some time, and then they left, and now they're coming back. And one of the things that they talked to me about was one of the job boards, and I told them, I said, listen, you know, you're missing the boat. Get away from those job boards, because all you're doing is you're churning people. Now, I'm not saying that job boards are bad.
sure.
I'm just saying that if you're going to do that, have a mechanism, have a support system for the people that are coming in, instead of throwing them up against the wall and seeing what's going to stick. That's not fair to anyone. First of all, if they really thought about it, I mean, because you and I both know what it means to recruit people, and we know that there's an acquisition cost by each
Correct.
person that comes in, right? So there's a cost that you're throwing your money out the window on the one hand, but the more important thing that we're doing is we're bringing people into this business, one, and not giving them the opportunity that they deserve, because they are looking for something. They are looking for something like this, where they're able to live the lifestyle like most people only dream of living like.
Yeah,
So
that's good, man. I love it. Yeah, and what would you say, like when you're training agents, and really plugging them in and trying to develop them? What's some of the key things that you guys have noticed and learned that that agents struggle with, or that you're able to help with, that could really help our audience today?
yeah, so uh, I think one of the biggest ones, well, there's a couple, and I'll mention two of the biggest.
Okay.
One of them is call reluctance.
True.
And if that telephone, we I just this morning, one of the things I spent about 4 hours this morning. I'm putting together a webinar, and
Ah,
so one of the things that I was talking about was, to stop missing sales. And the one thing that I said was if you want to get a fast start, it doesn't matter if you're new, it doesn't matter if you're a veteran, it doesn't matter if you're a sales manager. What you want to do is you want to pick this thing up, and you want to start making calls, and you
that's
say,
right.
yes, but that's my friends and my family. Well, who better to start with? So
Correct.
at least get some practice. So,
Exactly.
so I would say the first thing is call reluctance, and helping them to understand that they're not going to come through the phone, they're not going to beat them up, they're not going to shoot them or anything like that. So that's one. The other thing, which is huge, is follow up.
Mm,
So there are two times in selling and closing somebody that are the most critical. It's the first call and the last call. So, a lot of sales are made on that first call, but you have to make the call to get it, right?
Correct.
So if you don't sell them on the first call, or if you don't get in touch with them, when's the next time you want to get in touch with them? The last time, right? Because
Right.
they haven't bought yet. So
Yes.
those are the two best times. But you have to make the calls. You have to be able to do that. You have to do the follow-ups. You know, they say, and this was a couple of years ago, and it's actually gotten worse, is it used to be between 5 and 12 contacts before you're going to be able to actually present to them. Now it's even worse than that. Now it's 10 to 17 times.
Seriously.
But the great thing about that is we have artificial intelligence. You know, we have CRM systems that can really make it look like we're making the contacts, which can make an agent lazy, but that's where you have to give them direction and say, hey, don't rely on this. Don't make this your whoopee. You know, let's keep in the game here, because that's where you're really going to make your sales.
Yeah. For those that don't know about RL Virtual Marketing, they're just learning about you today, I'd love for you to share more about you, your company, and then also where they can learn more about y'all.
Okay, great. So I think being in this business, it's the best business on the planet.
Yeah, it is.
And I think for me, you know, I've had, I don't know what it means not to work. You know, I started working when I was about 6 years old. My mother was only 17 years older than I am. And so she was a single mom raising me. And so, you know, I shined shoes for my lunch money from the first grade, and until she married my stepfather, he's a phenomenal man. But so I don't know anything but hard work and getting, you know, if you want something, like if you want to eat lunch with your friends in school, you go shine shoes so that you can do that. You know, I'm grateful that I found insurance and found that I didn't have to shine shoes anymore.
Yes.
But so that's the first part about it. The other thing is, I think it's really important for me, and you know, nowhere. And I know you're a believer. I've heard you say it before, and so am I. And there's nowhere in the Bible where it talks about retirement. And so I don't ever intend to retire. People were asking me, you know, when I started RL Virtual, they said, don't you make enough money? And, you know, what is enough? I don't know, but it's really not about the money anymore for me. It's really more about making a difference and making an impact. But, you know, I lost my mother this past year in December. And, you know, one of the greatest honors that I had was when I was sitting with her, and the last words that I got to hear my mother say to me is that she was proud of me, that she really did love my ambition, the things that I've accomplished in my life.
Yes.
You know, she didn't say the things. She didn't say, well, hey, I was disappointed in you in the 80s when you lost everything. You know, she didn't talk about any of those other things that have happened and the ups and downs that I've had along the years getting to where I am. It was those were the sweetest words for her to say. I'm proud of you, Ronnie, for the accomplishments that you made.
That's so cool. So
the best way to get in touch with us would be you can go to rvirtualmarketing.com and you know, and I can provide you with some other stuff if we can put that, you know, at the bottom of that podcast. would like to be able to do that. What I would like to do, as I mentioned to you this morning, I mentioned to you that this morning I was putting together a webinar, and it's completely recorded, and so I can make that available. I'll make it available to anybody that wants it, that follow you, and I'll make sure that there's a link so that they can get that. So,
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, brother. It's also I like that you mentioned that at the end, man, that like, your mom didn't mention the downs, she just mentioned that she was, proud of you. And I think we can all relate to that message as we close this out. Is like, there's going to be, you have to push through a lot. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs, and, Ron's experienced plenty, I bet, but man, it's not the, yes, he's like grateful for the downs because it's made him who he is, right? Tougher, better, stronger. But we don't look back and say, and like, remember all the bad times. We remember the good times. I remember why we are where we are. So that's really cool. Appreciate sharing that. And thank you for being on the podcast today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate everything you're doing, man, in the industry.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate you, brother. Ron Jones with RL Virtual Marketing. Thank you all for listening to the Power Players Podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, if you enjoyed this, I got another one you're going to love. It's right there. Click on it. See you in there.
Hey, welcome back. I'm so excited for today's CA Power Player Podcast. I'm your host, Cody Askins. We got a special guest. He is back on the channel talking about how to sell life insurance from home. Here's what I love about this person.